Oh, my glasses are gross. Hi, my name's Cara and I read too much. Welcome to my Believeathon wrap up. I have talked about all these books in my Believeathon vlogs, but if you don't like watching vlogs, that's fine. We get you back. We're gonna wrap it up here. I read 30 books in a DNF for the 2 weeks of the Believeathon. Who is she? So we have a lot to talk about today, but also I just loved a lot of these, so I feel like my reviews are gonna be shit, but you're here, have fun. Get a tea, get a coffee, it could get a snack, it could be a long one. So the Believeathon was a readathon hosted by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, which I'll try to remember to link down below. There's a bunch of prompts. I think there's like 10 base prompts, 11 prompts. But you only need to you could do one of them or 5 of them. Like 5 is kind of like the idea of the path, but there are cheats for it, like official cheats. So I completed all 11 prompts plus obviously a bunch more books. So I won't talk about what fits what prompt because I'm gonna lose track of myself, but I fulfilled all the prompts. Let's just jump in, shall we? The very first book I ended up finishing for Believeathon was The Infinite Lives of Daisy Maisie Day. It's not Daisy May, she sells turnips. Maisie Day. I can't remember the author's name because I'm blanking. By Christopher Edge. This is a shortish novel. It talks a lot about science and alternate universes and how that could all work. I ended up giving this a 3 stars. I found it just like the balance of the science and the plot didn't work quite well for me. It was a little infra-dumpy, but if your child was interested in science, I feel like it could be a good book to read for that. I did also think I wasn't sure. I really can't talk to it because I don't have any first-hand experience, but I feel like she was coded with some autistic traits, but then was explicitly on page not autistic, and was just super smart with a super intense passion for science. Like, I don't know if it was just that the author didn't want to write an autistic character and worry about it being an authentic portrayal. Not sure. Unclear, but it was just a bit, I don't know, I can't comment on it because I don't have first-hand experience to really talk to it, but it was the thing I noticed. Yeah, so I gave it 3 stars. It was good. It just wasn't anything fabulous or memorable for me. Then next I read Rumblestar, which I actually listened to by Abby Elphinstone. This is a fantastical, whimsical story about our main character. Can I remember his name? Probably not. Let me look it up. Caspar, I think his name is. And he's African, or his mother is African. Can't remember if his birth parents are African. And they live in England. But actually the world was created by these, was it the dragons or the birds? Oh, I can't remember the actual like set up for the world, but so there's these unmapped kingdoms that you can maybe somehow get to, and Caspar ends up getting to one, called Rumblestar, where they control, at least in Rumblestar, they control the magic that causes the weather. So it was really cute. I ended up giving this 5 stars, I think. Yeah, 5 stars. It was just beautiful and whimsical and magical, and it got me in all the feels. The narration was really well done. It was just fun. It was so good. Then I read A Pinch of Magic, which has got good glare today, by Michelle Harrison. This is a another whimsical, magical kind of story. We follow 3 sisters, Fliss, Betty and Charlie, and they find out that they have a curse on their family that means they can never leave this town, but they are like, screw that, we're gonna break the curse. And they each have these magical gifts One of them has Matryoshka dolls, like babushka dolls. One has a mirror that you can talk to people in other places through. One has a bag that you can use it to transport yourself anywhere. It is so magical and whimsical. I did listen to this on audiobook, but I loved it so much that I went out and bought a physical copy, and a physical copy of book 2. So I loved it so much. I don't even know how to talk about it in a concise way, but April was correct. April wrapped this up and she said it has really strong Prisoner of Azkaban vibes, and it totally does. There's a prison, there's some other elements. It's so good. And I really love this. It was so much fun. Obviously 5 stars, did I say that? Then I listened to Brightstone by Vashti Hardy. This is like an adventuring novel. I gave this 4 stars. I also have it on order, but it's not near, like it hasn't got to me. I don't even think it's shipped yet. It's about these kids whose father goes missing and is presumed dead, and they're convinced, like everyone, the current rumor is that he stole from someone and he's been his name's been tarnished, but the kids are out to kind of prove him innocent, and it was wholesome. I use this for the prompt featuring disability because one of the main characters is missing an arm and he uses a like prosthetic metal arm, so that was really interesting to read about. And it was just, I think, just adventuring stories with a little less whimsy aren't quite fully a 5-star for me, but I did really enjoy my time reading it. It was really fun, and I'm definitely going to continue on the series. The audiobook was also really well produced. It had music at the start of every chapter, and it was just good sound effects. It was well done. Next up, I listened to Amelia, Fang and the Unicorn Lords by Lauren Ellen Anderson. Laura Ellen Anderson. This is a fun short, reminds me of a Ruby Gloom kind of story, and it was just wholesome and fun. It's really sweet. So obviously Amelia is a vampire, and she has a friend that's a rare breed of Yeti. What's her other friend? I can't remember what he is. And they're going into, like, they're scared of the daytime creatures and the unicorns, and they're going to try and find their friend's mum, who's a fairy. And it was a big, like, forbidden romance, and she's been missing since he was really little. So they're on the hunt to find her in the good lands. It was so cute. I can't wait to continue reading this series. I ended up giving that one a 4 stars. They're really, really short audiobooks, like 2 hours. I'm definitely going to finish the series soon. I'm just going to like fly through them because they're super fun. On the same vein, I read The Unimaginary Friend, which is the first book in the Skeleton Keys series by Guy Bass, which is another really short audiobook. If Amelia, Fang is Ruby Gloom, the Skeleton Keys is Gruesome Tales for Gory Kids. Gory Tales for Gruesome Kids. You know the show. You know the show I'm talking about. It's a lot darker, but still really funny. And we follow our main character, Ben, I think his name is, who has an imaginary friend. It's his second imaginary friend. And he accidentally brings him to life. And Skeleton Keys is coming to, like, put away the imaginary friend. Or unimaginary friend, because they've been made real. It's so cute. Again, I gave them on 3 stars. It was just a little less compelling to me than the Amelia Fangs, and I think the mixing of the narration and the sound effects was a little off. Like, the sound effects kind of overpowered the narrative a little. I did a reread of Artemis Fowl and the Arctic Incident. I haven't read this for a long time, so I couldn't remember much of it in the slightest. This is the second Artemis Fowl book, and really the first one where we get to learn about Opal, who's kind of like one of the main antagonists for the series. He's 13 in this one. So Artemis Fowl is like the son of a like mafia guy, kind of. He's like a rich man that makes his money illegally, and Artemis also does that. His dad was trying to go clean and got tangled up and stuff and went missing, and Artie's like, well, screw that. And he made his fortune robbing the fairies, and it's like him and a group of fairies go to try to save his dad. But he's like the ultimate anti-hero. He's so villainous, but also he's amazing. I do love this series. I'm scared to watch the movie because I hear they ruined a lot of the characters, but I do kind of want to watch it. It's just so good. I honestly, yeah, I'm definitely going to continue on this series. I own all of them. I've only ever read the first, no, actually I've read most of them, but I never finished the last couple. And then now I can't remember enough about the series to just jump into those ones. So we're rereading all of them and finishing off the series. Next up, I read The Clock Expires by Catherine Woodfine. This is a murder mystery, kind of murder mystery. It's a mystery, but more like a theft mystery with some murderish kind of elements thrown in. This follows a couple of girls and some, like there's 2 girls, 2 boys. The 2 girls work at, actually 2 girls and one of the boys work at this fancy newly opening department store in London, in the like heyday of department stores when they were first all opening post, like in the war period. One girl works in the millinery department and one girl works as a essentially a model, but they call her a mannequin, like they're there to sell off the clothes. They're like a living mannequin. And the boy works, one of the boys works in he's like a porter. And then they find out that there's this mystery happening, but none of the adults are taking them seriously, and it's them trying to kind of like solve the problems. I loved this. It was so good. I've bought this as well, but I don't think it's shipped either because I'm desperate to get my hands on this series physically and continue reading because it was so good. I figured out this fortnight the middle grade mystery is my jam. I love it to pieces. Like it's like an instant 5 stars almost, as long as the mystery is good. And I just, oh, it was so good. Lots of twists and turns. I didn't see things coming. I fell in love with the characters and I just can't wait to continue reading. On the topic of middle grade mysteries, I then went on to read First Class Murder by Robin Stevens, which is the 3rd book in the Murder Most Unladylike series. I always talk about this series because I absolutely love it, but I will say the main character is Hong Kong Chinese. I'm very confident it's not own voices, so do keep that in mind. And it is during the 1800s? No, 1930s. Sorry, I was a little wrong. So her dad is a rich Chinese businessman, and he was, I think he went to Eton, so he sent her to this like British public school to be educated, and so she's dealing with a bit of racism from her classmates, but really it's about her and her best friend Daisy's friendship, and they're a little bit tumultuous because Daisy's hot-headed and thinks she's right all the time, and Hazel, our main character, is much more like stable. But they together have this little detective agency where they solve actual murders. In the first book, a teacher gets killed. In this one, it's a Murder on the Orient Express style locked door mystery. And it was so fun. Kept me guessing. I was hooked. I had kind of like figured it out, but it kept me like still going like, but how could they have done it? And it was so good. I definitely recommend this series. I think the murders are really well plotted and paced, but they are like a mystery, not a thriller. Whereas I feel like Clock Expires had more thrillery elements. It was a little bit more like fast-paced action-y. This is very much like let's all sit around and figure out the clues and solve the mystery. So it's much more like an Agatha Christie style mystery. But I love this series, and I've already bought the next one, and there's like a couple of novellas that go in between in a bind up, so I bought that as well. I'm so excited. Next up, I read The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Captain M. Valente. I listened to this in an audiobook. I gave this 3 stars. I feel like it just didn't work for me. It was a little bit nonsensical in its plot, and I had a really hard time following the plot on audiobook. I think I want to try reading this again sometime physically, or just moving on to the second book but continuing the series physically, where I can actually like flick backwards and forwards to keep track of the plot, which I don't like doing on audiobook, so it just does my head in. But yeah, I loved the writing style. If you liked Deathless by Catherine M. Valente, I feel like it's much closer to Deathless than any of her other stuff. It's got that same like fairy tale Russian-esque, like Slavic-ish folklore, very fairy tale whimsical writing. But yeah, I had a hard time following the plot. So I did like the characters, but without a strong sense of plot, it really failed to grab my attention and keep me engaged. So yeah, 3 stars. Then I read another 5-star read, and honestly, I have not had this many 5-star reads in a month, like ever. This is not the right one. This one. I read Gogantis by Thomas Taylor, which is the sequel to Malamander, which I'm not surprised I gave this 5 stars because I also loved Malamander. This is about a small town called Erie on Sea. They're cheery on sea in the summer, but in the winter the CH falls off and they become Erie on Sea. And we follow Herbie Lemon, who is the lost and founder at the Grand Nautilus Hotel. So he looks after missing things or things that have lost their owner. And we also follow his best friend Violet, who was a lost child picked up by the lost and found a long time ago. And she came back looking for her parents in Malamander. And now there's a storm coming in. The storm of the Gargantus, and they're trying to solve the mystery. And it's just so good. These characters are great. The narration is hilarious. Like, I love the writing style. Thomas Taylor actually did the illustrations for, he illustrated the original Philosopher's Stone cover, I think. Yes, he did the original cover art for Philosopher's Stone straight out of art school. And now he's obviously writing his own series. And it's just, it's so funny, and I can't get over it. I love it so much. I love it so much. I can't wait to read more in the series. They could keep going forever and I would keep reading them. They're just so good. Next up, I read The Polar Bear Explorers Club by, who wrote this? Alex Bell. I gave this 4 stars. I didn't love it. I listened to it. It just didn't quite hit the mark for me. Again, I think it's that adventure without enough whimsy and funny. Like, the adventure ones aren't my faves. They can be good, but they're not my faves. So this one follows, what are my characters' names? Because I can't remember because I've read so many things. I'm so sorry, this is all over the place. Stella, Starflake, Pearl, and her friends. And Stella really, really wants to be a polar bear explorer, but the club is all full of men. And so they petition to get her in, and she gets in, and then they're going on an expedition and things go wrong. It was fun. I'll probably continue the series, but I didn't like feel a strong connection to it or like a strong drive to continue the series. Like, I'm not like dying for it. No. It was just good. So it's like a 3.5 round up to a 4 stars. Next up, I listened to The Wizards of Once by Cressida Cowell, which I ended up buying physically after listening to it. And I'm going to continue the series reading along with the audiobooks. The audiobooks are narrated by David Tennant. Obviously, Cressida Cowell wrote How to Train Your Dragon. And this one is about a group of wizards and warriors, I think the other group is called. Or soldiers, warriors? Soldiers, warriors. And they're enemy tribes, but they're dealing with stuff. And oh, it's just so good. I gave this 5 stars. It just hit all the right beats. The narration was amazing. And I loved it. I just really had a good time with it. And I can't wait to continue the series. It's definitely aimed a little younger than some of the other stuff I've read, even though this is pretty chunky, but the text is huge. And it was just so good. Then I listened to The Lost Twin, which is the first book in the Scarlet and Ivy series by Sophie Cleverley. I gave this 3 stars and I was so confused throughout so much of this. We follow, what are the twins' names? Oh, Scarlet and Ivy. But we follow Ivy. Scarlet is apparently dead, straight off the bat. But Ivy doesn't know what's happened to her. She apparently died from some sickness after she went away to boarding school. And then Ivy is getting a letter from the, like, one of the teachers at the school saying she needs to come and impersonate Scarlet and be Scarlet at school. So she's trying to, like, pretend to be her sister, also trying to figure out what happened to her sister. It was a ride, but I was so confused, and the tone didn't quite match the plot. It was very dark, but the tone wasn't. There was a lot of bullying, a lot of violence. Like, these girls were hitting and kicking each other, and I didn't know what to think. I gave it 3 stars. I might continue the series if I suddenly get in the mood. We'll see. I think the next one follows Scarlet, but I'm not sure about the plot. Because obviously she's not actually dead. But you gotta figure out what happened to her. But when you find out what happened to her, oh my god, what a ride. But it, like, took a long time to get there. It was confusing. It was confusing. Alright, so I had to flick the blinds because the sun's come out. We had to charge the camera. The angle could be different. But here we go, let's keep going. So, next up I read Tilly and the Book Wanderers, which is the first book in the Pages and Co series by Anna James. This is an adorable little series. We follow Tilly, who finds out that her family are book wanderers, which means they can go into stories and their characters in stories can come out and be friends with them. It's so wholesome. That's a better angle. I gave this 5 stars and immediately went out and purchased it. It's just so cute. It does have some illustrations, though I feel like, oh yeah, there we go. They're a bit sporadic, but they're in there. This one features stories from Treasure Island, Alice in Wonderland, Pippi Longstockings? No, it's Anne of Green Gables. And maybe Pippi Longstockings is in there. I can't remember. And yeah, I loved this. I definitely want to continue on the series, and I already have the second one. And I'll be reading it in like July. I'm waiting for the audiobook to come in so I can read along because I loved doing that. Paige had already read this, but she read the second one, and April read both this month. And we all just loved it so much. So good. 5 stars for this one. Then I listened to The Mysterious Howling by Mary Rose Wood, which is the first in the Incorrigible Children of Ashton Place. This is like a 6-book short middle grade series with essentially it's like Mary Poppins meets, she rocks up at this, oh, it kind of meets the turn of a key, but like in a fun way. She rocks up at this posting that she thinks she's going for the standing job, and she's a governess position, and she's trained to be a governess. And so she rocks up at this house, and then she finds out that the children have actually literally been raised by wolves, and the owner of the manor, the father of the house, I guess, found them in the forest and brought them home. So she's kind of in charge of like socializing these children and getting them used to high society in like a Mary Poppins era, like 1800s. And it was so cute and adorable and wholesome. I give it 4 stars. It was a fun audiobook. The narration was amazing. It was just cute. It was so cute. As is this kitten here, but you can't see her face. But this is her butt and her little face. It's like, stop it! Stop it! Next up I read Dragonfell by Yoonha Lee. This is a Rick Riordan Presents series, and it's sci-fi with Korean mythology. Main character is a gumiho, and she's in search of the Dragonfell. I enjoyed this, but I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. I think it had some pacing issues, where some bits were just boring, like nothing was happening. I also thought the main character was so frustrating at times. She just made bad decisions. But the mythology elements were great. I loved how the gumiho magic was utilized in this. I thought it was really clever. And it was darker than I expected, but yeah, I just found it boring or like, even if things were happening, the way it was written, I would find myself easily tuning out. So yeah, I give it 3 stars. It was good, but like, I wanted it to be so much better. Then I read Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin. This is a short fairy tale-ish retelling. I think it's a Snow White and Rose red retelling. Kind of. It is very whimsical. It's illustrated, which is beautiful. And I loved the story, but I do think it was a little simplistic in its writing style. I ended up giving this a 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. Again, I thought the characters made some dumb decisions, but it was kind of in that fairy tale way, so it was alright. So we follow Snow and Rose, whose father, they like were a wealthy family, and then their father went into the forest and disappeared, so they were left without an income, and their mother took the 2 of them into the forest to like live a little peasant life. And they're kind of exploring the forest and like the woods, and magical things are happening there. It was really good. There's a little library, but the library is all like items that have memories attached. It's like a memory library. Loved that, but I feel like it was a little underplayed in the narrative. And overall, I really loved it. I loved the illustrations, especially, were beautiful. Then I listened to the We Fell From Space by Amy Sarah King, or A.S. King. This is a contemporary with a little science fiction-y twist. We follow Liberty, who is obsessed with making her own constellations. Like, she'll map the stars and then draw in her own constellations, which I think is a great idea. That's so cool. And essentially it's Liberty dealing with the trauma from a divorce and trying to navigate the new life with separated parents, and her own grief and anger, and how she's like coping. It was very wholesome. I feel like it's a great exploration of divorce and frustration with parents, and I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. It's just not like exactly my perfect thing. That makes sense. Though I thought it had some great messages, and I would definitely recommend it for children who are dealing with a divorce and looking for similar points of view to like experience. Then I read The Land of Yesterday by K.A. Reynolds. This is another grief kind of story. We're following a family in this like alternate universe where houses have souls. It's very whimsical. But her little brother, the main character's little brother, died falling down the stairs. And their mum blames herself, I think, and she's going to the land of yesterday to try and be with him. You were snoring so loudly. Can you hear that? That's the cat. So it's dealing a lot with grief, and I guess vaguely a metaphor for suicide, as the mom's like going to join the brother in the land of yesterday. And our main character is going to try and get her mum back, and is dealing with the house that's really angry, and dealing with grief as well. And yeah, it was really whimsical, really magical, but I think a really good exploration of grief. I gave that one 4 stars as well. No, wait, I gave that one 5 stars. It was just really whimsical and magical. Then I listened to Winter House by Ben Goodison, and immediately then went and picked it up. This has illustrations by Chloe Bristol. This is a like puzzle mystery. It's kind of an inheritance mystery, and it's got some like fantastical elements. I loved this. This is exactly my kind of like puzzle thing. If you liked Chasing Vermeer, I feel like this has Chasing Vermeer vibes. It also has strong what's that one about the house and like the Westing game? It has strong Westing game vibes. It also says here, a charming atmospheric mystery with some fantasy elements for fans of Kate Milford's Green Glass House and Trenton Lee Stewart's The Mysterious Benedict Society. So I want to read both of those. Similar to Pseudonymous Bosch, it's got good like puzzles. It's a lot of word puzzles. Every like they're solving codes and stuff, but like at the start of every chapter or section, it has these like where you move from one word to another by like, I don't know if that even came up on the camera. So this one says, Christmas approaches and the nights are dark. Dark, lark, lack, lock, look, book. So you're like changing from one word to another, like one step at a time. And yeah, it has like puzzles and stuff that tie into the plot. I loved this and I can't wait to continue on with the series. I've bought the second book as well because I want to continue on. And it was just so good. Like, great puzzle mystery. 5 stars. Next up, I read The Strange Worlds Travel Agency by L.D. Lipinski. This is another 5 stars. I just read so many good books this like 2 weeks. In this one we follow Flick, who's 12 and she's moving to this little village in the English countryside. Her parents are really busy. They both work like multiple jobs and she has a little brother, and she just kind of feels like she's taking on a lot of adult responsibilities for someone her age. So she is going exploring the town and she stumbles across this little shop called the Strange Worlds Travel Agency. And then in the travel agency we meet Jonathan, and Jonathan's 18 and taken on the family business because his father's gone missing. But the business is essentially these suitcases that you can jump into them and travel to different worlds, and then they're kind of dealing with it. And it was so good. I feel like there was a slight pacing issue, but like not enough that bothered me. And I loved the world. Like, I just like struggled through a little bit at the start before the plot fully ramped up, but the ending made up for that. So it was still a 5 stars. Flick is such an interesting character. Same with Jonathan. This is the first middle grade I feel like I've read where we had like a late teen character as well, and he really stood on his own, but like it wasn't too mature. Like it made sense. But he also was very flawed because he's like 18 and taking on this family business unprepared. And it was just so good. I desperately want to read more in this series, but it's a new release, so there are no more yet. But like, hit me up, I want more of these. Then I read Nooks and Crannies by Jessica Lawson. This is it's described as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory meets Clue, which it is. Essentially this duchess, I think she's a countess, is like, I have a fortune and a mysterious grandchild that I didn't know existed. If you're my mysterious grandchild, come forward and win a bunch of money. So she invites a bunch of kids to come to this orphanage, not orphanage, to her manor. Someone dies and it's a closed door locked room mystery. So they're trying to figure out who killed someone and who like the inheritance belongs to. It's so good. I gave it 4 stars. I think it was just a little simplistic in its mystery compared to some of the others I read. And it was a lot more about the friendship and family elements than the mystery itself. But I did really love it. It was great fun. Then I read The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. I also gave this 5 stars. This is a Baba Yaga based story. So our main character is the granddaughter of a Baba Yaga, who she's kind of dealing with. She knows she's meant to become the next Baba Yaga, or the next Yaga, because there's a whole group of them, but she's meant to take over the house from her Baba. But she's kind of like grading against that fate, and it's a lot about your own fate. I did find her very frustrating for a large portion of this. Like you could tell what she needed to do to solve the problem, and she was just adamantly not doing it. But the messages and the like heartbreakingness was so wholesome that I still gave it 5 stars. It was still so beautiful. I really want to read now The Girl Who Speaks Bear, which is also by Sophie Anderson. But it's just, yeah, so wholesome. Then I listened to The Last Chance Hotel by Nikki Thornton. This is another middle grade mystery, but this one's kind of got a fantastical element. There's wizards and they do magic and stuff, but still is a locked room mystery. One of the wizards dies and was poisoned, and they're trying to figure out who did the poisoning. For me, so we follow Seth Seppi, who is the son of the old chef and his dad went missing. So now he's doing all the cooking, but other people are taking credit and he's just the kitchen boy. But, and he's then accused of killing this wizard, which he didn't do. And then you're trying to figure out who did kill the wizard. I just found, to me, the mystery was fun, but the magic system was a bit unexplained. Like, I didn't really feel like I understood the magic system. So in that regards, it kind of let me down a little bit. It felt too open to possibilities. I didn't really understand the rules. So for that reason, I gave it 4 stars. It was still fun, but it just kind of let me down on the magical element. Then I read His Name Was Walter by Emily Rodda, which I wanted to love, but I ended up giving it 3 stars. This is a Australian story. It's kind of fairy tale-esque, but we follow these kids who get they're going on a trip to like an old-timey town. So there's a town, at least near where I live, called Sovereign Hill, that's like a gold rush town, and you can go there and they're all like, it's a theme, like a resort kind of thing, like a theme park, but it's just a town that's old-timey and doing all old-timey stuff. It's kind of, they're going to this town that's kind of like that, like a historical town with a lot of historical elements for a school trip, but they get waylaid. Their bus breaks down on the way into town, and the tow truck driver, I think, is like, oh, there's that abandoned house on the hill. It's not really abandoned, but no one lives in there. We own it, but we haven't been able to fix it up properly yet. But there's electricity and running water. Go stay up there because there's a storm coming in. So they climb the hill and go stay in this house. And they find in it this storybook called His Name Was Walter. And they're reading the storybook. Weird things going down. The storybook's kind of like a fairy tale book, but it's also kind of an allegory. My biggest problem was the pacing in this, because you read the story and then them reading the story, and both had very different pacings. It kind of was a little boring for most of it, and it took it was just a hard slog for a short book for me. It was just a slog. I expected this to be much more action-packed than it was. I've read a lot of Emily Rodda before. She writes action-packed books. This is not her normal style for me. To me, it was very slow, but in the end the allegory and the message were good, but it took so long to get there that I just couldn't get on board. 3 stars. Then we have my 1 DNF of the fortnight, and this is Cogheart by PG Bell. I think I might come back to this physically at some point, like read the ebook rather than the audiobook. I was trying to listen to it, and I don't know whether it was just the day that I was listening and my head was just in the wrong headspace, or the book itself, but I had no concept of the plot. I got 25% in and I could not understand what was happening. It's meant to be a steampunk kind of story. We follow a girl who I think her father went missing, and a boy who's an apprentice to something, and there was a fox, but I didn't understand what the fox was doing. There was a mysterious woman, but I didn't understand what was happening there, and I was just confused as to how everything was trying to tie together. I feel like I missed important information, and I was 25% of the way in, and I felt like nothing had happened except setup, and I didn't even understand the setup, so I gave up. I might come back to it physically one day. This is a 4-book series, and they're really cute covers, so I want to like them. So I might try reading the ebook and see if reading it with my eyes on a better day might help. So I'm not completely ruling it out, but we might come back to it at some time. It was a DNF for now. Then over a couple of days, it took me a while, I don't know why, but I loved this, but it took me a while to read. That is the Winterbourne House, Winterbourne Home for Vengeance and Valor by Ali Carter. Ali Carter is one of my favorite authors. She wrote the I'd Tell You I Love You But Then I'd Have to Kill You, which is the Gallagher Girls series, and High Society, which is another series by her. So the Gallagher Girls are spies, and High Society are obviously heists, and they're set kind of in the same world, like there's some crossover novellas. This feels very much reminiscent of those, but in a middle grade setting. We follow April, who is an orphan, and she's always had this key around her neck, and she's at a museum and like with a group of foster home kids, and she sees a whole lot of stuff from the Winterbourne family, who famously all died except for the youngest son, and then he went missing like 10 years later. And so their estate is kind of like a big mystery, and April figures out that her key has the Winterbourne crest on it. So she then gets caught up. A bunch of orphans get taken to Winterbourne House or Winterbourne Home to be kind of like live there and go to school there, but then she's solving the mystery of what happened to the missing Winterbourne. It was so good, so action-packed. It's heisty, it's a mystery. It's so good. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It's hilarious. The narration is great. And I really want more in this series, but I don't think any more are signed on. But it is a kind of new release. I think it only came out start of this year or end of last year. Yeah, start of this year. So I would desperately want more in this series. It was so good. And then I read The Train to Impossible Places by, I can't remember the author's name, PG Bell. I didn't love this. I gave this, what, 4 stars? Yeah, 4 stars. It was good, but it kind of missed a little bit of extra magic for me. It was just good. We follow a girl who wakes up in the middle of the night one night. Her parents are like dead to the world asleep, and a giant train is coming through her house and laying tracks for a train, and she gets kind of caught up in it. And becomes like a postal worker for them, and gets caught up in this magical plot. And it was fun. I listened to this on audiobook. I do think I missed a few key points right at the start, but I was trying real hard to focus, but this was coming straight off Cogheart, so I feel like I was just not in a good audiobook day. But I did really enjoy it overall, and I loved the ending. So I'm definitely going to continue on this series, and I gave it 4 stars. I also quickly read, because I realized I was like 1 short of 30 in a DNF. I hadn't completed a prompt for 100 Acre Wood, which is something published before 2000. So I quickly read When We Were Very Young, which is a collection of poems by A.A. Milne, which I have read before. It is a reread. And it was very nostalgic. It's very a product of its time, i.e. colonialist, but I still remembered like off by heart some of the poems, because I had read this a lot when I was a kid. And some of them are like well ingrained in my psyche, and it was really sweet and fun, and I zoomed through it in like 5 minutes. I gave it 4 stars, but probably more for the nostalgia than anything else. And then finally, for the fortnight of Believeathon, I read A Place Called Perfect by Helena Duggan. This is I think I will buy a copy of this physically too. This is a Coraline-esque magical story. We follow Violet, is that my character's name? Whose father is an ophthalmologist, and they go to this town because he was offered a job where everyone in the town goes blind, and then they have these special glasses that fix the blindness, but they want to try and find a way to like mean that the town doesn't have to wear glasses, but it's actually all a big creepy mystery. And the Violet's trying to solve the mystery. Everyone in this town kind of goes nuts, and they become like perfect versions of themselves. It's real creepy. It's glorious. The only bit that could have maybe held this back, it's probably like a 4.5 round up to a 5 stars, is that the ending I found a little confusing to follow the plot of the like climax. But overall I really loved it. The mystery elements were top notch, and I gave this 5 stars. I can't wait to continue the series. So those are all the books that I read for the 2 weeks of Believeathon. This wrap up is huge. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you participated in Believeathon, your favorite thing you read for Believeathon. I would love to know. And otherwise I'll see you soon with another video. Bye.